A real quick note about audio quality. I accidentally had my webcam as my mic for our chat today, and it does not sound very good. The picture's great, but I don't know how they even can get away with having a microphone with such poor quality in 2023. It's astounding, but very sorry. You'll get used to it. Still a good episode, so let's get into it. Do you want a new module? Some patch cables? Some cassettes? A t-shirt? Stickers? Blank panels? Well, if you've answered yes to any of the above, then you're in luck. Head over to patreon.com/podularmodcast and be on the lookout for my post that I'm going to be making around mid to late March. I don't want to say when. It's going to be kind of a, when's it going to happen type thing. Also want to give you a chance to sign up if you haven't signed up yet. I have put together 10 different little care packages, 4 of which have a module in them to pass on. It's just a bunch of stuff that I have. I love this stuff, but I've got too much stuff. It's coming out of my ears, and I want to pass it on to my Patreon community as a token of my appreciation. So the way it's going to work is when that post comes up, you're going to go to the comments section and you're going to say, I want some, and that's going to be how it goes. The reason I'm only doing 10 is because if I did more, shipping would probably get out of hand, and I don't want to charge people for shipping for a gift. That seems kind of weird. So yeah, if that sounds like fun, and if any of this stuff that you see whizzing across the screen right now is at all interesting looking to you, then once again, head over to patreon.com/podularmodcast and help keep the LEDs blinking over here at PodMod. This week's episode is brought to you by Novation and their flagship 2-part 16-voice, 61-key polyphonic synthesizer, the Summit. Built on the same innovative foundations as the critically acclaimed Peak, Summit's deep sound design capabilities, 16-voice 2-part multi-timbral engine, and intuitive tactile workflow add up to a synth that is far more than the sum of its parts. For more information, please visit novationmusic.com, link in the show description. Hello and welcome back to Podular Modcast. My name is Tim Held. This week we have Andrew, aka Oz, returning back to Podular Modcast. So we could call it the Return of Oz episode. Oz hasn't been on the show since pre-pandemic, and a lot has happened in the Expert Sleepers world, like the Disting X or EX and a bunch of analog modules. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the new module that Expert Sleepers just released and the Expert Sleepers label. So buckle up. It's going to be a good chat. All right, before we get into this chat, I want to tell you all that I have a new EP out on timheld.bandcamp.com. It's also on Spotify and iTunes and all of that. It is Remote Performances 4. It is made up of all the tracks that I've made in the last, 6-7 months. I've got my Crater Lake performance on there, the Mount Hood performance, and then a number of performances from around the Tacoma and Seattle area. Lots of guitar stuff on it, and I'm pretty happy with where I'm going. I feel like I'm finally getting good at having a small system and making music that's worthwhile. It was really funny. The other night, my wife and I were listening to a bunch of records, and we wanted just to have a nice scenery on the TV. So I actually just put up my Remote Performances playlist because, my wife goes along with me on a lot of these journeys, and, they date back to a couple years ago now, so we can look at them and, hey, where were we going there and what was going on here? And it was really fun. But I realized something that, and I say this, this is not asking, this is no beating myself up, and this isn't asking for anybody to be like, no, it's great. It's 100% true. It's like the music is the most lacking part of a lot of my videos. Some of them I think I'd made really cool patches, but I'm making these patches on the spot, and I just wasn't really all that great at it. So what I I recommend to y'all is put on my remote performances playlist and mute it, and then put on whatever music that you want to listen to, because I feel like the videos are actually really cool. But the music is getting better, and I think that one of the recent ones on Remote Performances 4 is one of my current favorites, and I'm going to play that video / track for you now. I had just a basic riff idea going out to this location that's in my neighborhood, and I improvised on it for a while and actually ended up, kind of forming this song that I think is pretty cool. I used the Strega for a lot of the chunky and almost like tremolo type stuff. Of course, the Qubit, Nebulae, Nautilus, and Aurora, and then all sorts of 4MS stuff. Shaped dual envelope VCA. And then from After Later Audio, I've got the Razor, which is the 1-to-1 version of Blades, part of the Mutable Instruments Classics line, using the Board Brain Injector, which I actually am holding up right now here because it's sitting in front of me, to get my guitar in there. Yeah, I think I've got the Mimeophone in there too. I don't know. I don't really remember. But either way, it's a cool video, and I've talked already way too long about it. So let's watch / listen to that and then get into our chat with Oz from Expert Sleepers. rolling. You caught me mid experiment. So I don't know. We haven't talked in a while, and we'll get to that. But I don't know if you've seen on YouTube. I put my synth on like a backpack frame and walked around a ferry with and used it as like a field recorder.
No, I have not seen that. No.
So I'm trying to get the ultimate travel setup, for when I go camping and bringing all my stuff out for field recording and videoing and just playing music out in the woods and stuff. So I bought this external frame backpack so I can actually just set stuff, whatever I want on it. But the other day I bought some of these bendy like mic stands. So I kind of like tape them to the side to put, different mics up here so I can walk around and record stuff and play, or just even set this down and have this be my synth stand so I can maybe hike it in somewhere or something.
That's begging to have a GoPro put on it.
Right? Yeah, I definitely need some more cameras, but I'm a bit on the poor side, hence the electrical tape taping things.
It works.
Yeah, I carry electrical tape around in my vest pocket because it's just one of the most handy things. But everybody says duct tape.
That's good to know. Should I ever need any of that, I'll ask you.
So you were on, let's see, episode 36. So and
what episode are we on now?
I don't know, because we're going to release a little later because you're going to talk about new stuff in the high 240s or low 250s. Yeah, it'll be 5 years next month. In March, it'll be 5 years. It's not crazy. And I thought for sure you had been on more than once, but I think the reason I think that is because you and I have, we've I did a lot of stuff with the disting for a while, and I think we've been together on like a panel on one of the COVID, synth things or something like that. But I want to catch up. I want to talk about the new modules. Like, you haven't been on since the Disting EX or any of like the phaser or the VCO or the
none of the analog stuff. No,
none of the
possibly not the ES9 either.
No. And I actually started using Bitwig since then, and I'm like, ooh, that ES9 would be nice to have. So it's on the list. But we don't have to get too in the weeds as far as COVID goes, but because we haven't talked since, a lot's happened. So let's get up to speed on what's been new with Oz and Expert Sleepers and everything.
Well, since 5 years ago. Well, you've kind of just covered it. I mean, it was an interesting few years in the pandemic, as I'm sure anybody you've spoken to will have said, but it had ups as well as downs for the music industry. Lots of people stuck at home with their Euroracks. So it was actually quite a good few years, business-wise. But so Disting EX, the ES9, and this whole new range of analog stuff coming out. Nothing much on the software front, although recently I did get, I don't know what the word is for when somebody famous mentions you on a blog and suddenly everybody buys your software. I'm sure there's a word for that, but that happened basically.
Or, whatever their name is, bump, you could call it the...
Yeah, exactly. So basically some plugin that I wrote, I don't know, 10 years ago and completely forgotten about, just simply in maintenance mode, has sold more copies in the last couple of months than it had ever sold before in its lifetime.
Wow.
So that was unexpected, and made me really glad that I'd actually kind of kept these plugins alive rather than just completely focusing on the hardware.
Can you say who it was and what the plugin was?
Yeah, it was the guy goes by the name Fred again.
Okay.
He mentioned my he's famous if you are into music producers, apparently. I hadn't heard of it. But he's a kind of protege of Brian Eno, who you probably have heard of.
Yes.
And he mentioned this plugin, Spectral Conquest, which I wrote on kind of Brian's bequest. So there was a kind of a link around there.
You wrote a piece of software on Brian Eno's request?
Yes.
So you've worked with Brian Eno on stuff?
No, I've never actually met the guy, but a really good friend of mine is Brian's tech guy.
Okay.
So there were a few kind of back and forths through that
Yeah.
channel.
Nice.
So yeah, it would be nice to say I'd actually met and worked with him in person, but that hasn't happened yet.
Right.
But it was a good. The benefit was a very long time in coming, but it has
Hmm.
now arrived.
It's so
So that
weird
was
when that,
nice.
that kind of thing happens. It's just kind of like
Yeah, yeah,
completely unexpected. Um,
yeah,
and Brian, if you're listening, I'd love to have you on. Um,
yeah.
my friend Steven keeps, why haven't you asked Brian Eno to be on the show? And I'm like, because he's Brian Eno, and he's not going to come on the show. But
You never
yeah,
know.
that's awesome. Yeah, you never know. I
Yeah,
just gotta reach out on Instagram or something. Um,
yeah.
yeah, so like the pandemic was very weird because it did seem like a lot of people got into modular because they were at home, and here in the I think it was pretty common in most places for people to get some sort of like extra help with unemployment or some aid through it. So a lot of people found themselves with a little extra money, and
Mm,
it seemed like that really gave a big boost to modular. And it also, because everybody's home and there are no shows, like all these people started doing all these great Twitch streams, and I feel like it really united the worldwide modular community. Like we were all our pockets, and we could we could interact on Instagram and become buds that way. But like this was like real solid hangs. It seemed like in a lot of cases. Did you find yourself like connecting with
um,
anyone new over it, or
not. I mean, I did a few of the kind of live streamed or live streamed, but actually not live streamed
right?
concert things that became all the vogue for a few months, and that was great. I did more gigs in that few months than I had done in the last couple of years. But I guess already felt fairly connected because I mean the expert sleepers wouldn't really exist as it is without the internet being there to reach out to customers anyway. So I guess from that point of view, I already felt that I was in
Yeah,
touch with the world. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, if it was a yeah, like I say, it was a good few years for sales and interest and stuff, and of course that's kind of gone off a cliff
Yeah,
with the end of the lockdown and with everything suddenly becoming incredibly expensive.
hmm
But
yeah. I
we'll
hope
weather
this is
that
just a
storm,
little
I'm sure.
bump. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Um,
you'd think.
well, that makes me wonder. I have never thought about this, but because of the nature of, well, just the disting and the EX, like the fact that you're constantly updating and adding to it, I wonder if that keeps you more in like dialogue with your users than somebody who just releases hardware with no firmware updates or added features or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. I mean, I think it's probably true that I'm actually in touch with a tiny fraction of the actual user base because,
Definitely.
you know, I know how many I've sold, and I'm definitely not talking to that many people. So there's a kind of there's a vocal minority, but equally that the feedback of that vocal minority is very valuable, especially when you've got people like going out of their way to do like so. There's a guy at the moment who's doing a really really in depth Touch OSC layout for the Disting EX,
Okay.
and he's working with what I'm giving him, but also he's suggesting ways in which that could work better with like just tweaks to the MIDI implementation and things like that. And that everybody benefits from that.
Yeah. So how does that
Um,
work with something like disting? Like, if you're working with somebody who's kind of, are you like contracting them, or is it like
no, 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 no.
it's
It's
just
just
like
that
a
they're a customer who wants to do something and is either finding hitting a brick wall or just suggesting how something could be a bit slicker.
Mhm.
And it's if it's easy for me to do and it doesn't conflict with the overall product design. I mean, I'm not going to take something off in a complete left field direction just for somebody's suggestion. But if it's consistent with what I would like the product to be,
Mhm.
then I'm all for it.
Yeah.
And I know that at least one person wants it. Whereas I could just put something else in that I've spent 2 weeks doing and nobody would want it. So yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
and So I know I haven't listened to our episode, since I was probably editing it. But one thing that I do remember is, talking about, the future of disting and like, will you ever, stop updating it or adding new features? And I mean, if that was 5 years ago, by the time we were talking, and we were at Mark 4, so is
Yeah.
disting 10 or older now? Like, how long have you been doing expert sleepers with your
I should have that answer on the tip of my tongue, but I don't. I could let's see if I can very, very quickly switch to a different browser window and type that in thing and see if it will come up. Bum, 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 bum. First module was 2010.
Wow. So it's 13.
So, but the disting itself is not that old. But, it's getting on a bit. First module was the ES1. But yeah, the Mark IV has been a while. I mean, I'm still updating that, though not as often. It's getting a bit full. But the DEX, I'm certainly, still very much updating. Yeah, I guess the thing that with the EX that's kind of got people excited more than anything recently is because I've put a few of the mutable algorithm designs.
Oh, cool! Nice.
The braids and the rings, which, yeah, I've been pleased that people have been positive about it. There could very easily have been kind of some naysayers who would point out that I'm just profiting from somebody else's work.
Yeah.
But it is open source, so it's all completely legitimate. But whether or not it's legal, it's kind of ethical, I feel, in as much as that company's no longer trading. So, it's not like
especially now that Emily's retired from the business. Then
exactly. So, and I did actually shoot her an email before I put anything out saying, I know I'm within my rights to do this, but are you cool? And she said, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I said I was going to put braids in it. She said, yeah, that's fine, but why not put plants in it? So, yeah, I took that to mean it was fine. So, that's got some people excited recently. It's nice to suddenly deliver a lump of functionality that people have bought this module and now suddenly they have a different module,
right,
as well,
right.
or instead, or in the case of the braids, they have 4 braids because I've managed to. The disting runs faster than the braids hardware, so it can do 4 of them.
Wow,
which is nice.
And we're not going to spend the whole time talking about disting, but it is just such a significant player in the world of Eurorack. I'm wondering, you're obviously still. You don't hate working on new ideas for the disting, but it seems like you're still have some excitement about it. But also, is this kind of like a, it's a work and play mixture, I'm sure, can you explain your experience of the years of disting?
I mean, fundamentally, historically at least, I'm a software person, not a hardware person. So it's kind of my comfort zone. So I do enjoy the coding. And it's a lot less scary. You don't have to suddenly spend thousands and thousands of pounds on hardware and see if anybody wants to buy it. By basically selling the same module forever, but just tinkering with the software, the risk is mitigated there. So the hardware exists and is stable. Yeah. And I can just mess with the software.
You still feel excited about that, like the new ideas for it and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and often they're driven by what I personally would like to be using in a modular synth at any one time. So, and that applies to most things I do. It certainly applies to the disc, and it certainly applies to the FH2. I'm always stuffing in features to the FH2 because whatever I want to do live that week involves something that the thing clearly could do, but that doesn't quite do. So everybody benefits when I have some gigs on, because it inevitably means some very performance-driven things are going in.
That's one of my favorite things about Eurorack is just how many things exist because their designer needed it for a specific use. You know?
Absolutely.
I think it's a really unique trait of you builders. So I'm curious about the EX. Is that because technology had advanced enough to where you could get faster processors or bigger, like what was the main impetus for creating the EX?
Now you're asking, actually. It was definitely to be able to leverage some better hardware, to have a proper screen. In fact, that was probably as much as anything, to actually have a screen that was. I mean, I love the Disting Mark IV screen. I think that's how it works, for given that it's like a 5x7 character display. It's great, but there's no substitute for a nice actual readable OLED. So it was wanting to get that in, and then you can't get an OLED display that's in 4HP, really, not that I know of. So that could have made the module bigger, but then I didn't want it to be like a really fat Disting, so make it a really fat 2 Distings. And it just the way that, when I figured out that I could basically have 2 Disting Mark IVs, exactly the same layout of knobs and jacks, and then put one screen between the two, that kind of fell into place as an idea, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Sorry, go ahead.
I got the fastest microcontroller that I could find, compatible with the software, and then just stuffed it full of all the other expansion ports that had kind of come up in the meantime. So the Disting EX got a select bus connection because that had become a thing, and it's got MIDI, and it's got an expansion for my ES5 module, and it's got an expansion for the FHX expanders, which has actually never been used as that, but then that became the expansion connector for the external display, which I now support. So just by stuffing as many features, and I2C as well, so you can connect it up to kind of that whole kind of teletype world. I just made it kind of anything that I thought might be useful now or in the future, put it in there, and then knowing that I would maybe not use it right away, but I'd have it there when the firmware was ready to use it.
Yeah,
and that's worked out well. Yeah, being able to stuff that extra display on was completely unexpected, but it worked out.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense because, speaking from experience as somebody who I think at one point owned up to 4 Distings at one time, I think it makes sense because Disting is one of those modules that sometimes it's almost like going through Spotify or Netflix, like you're paralyzed by the amount of choice, you know. And I was actually chatting with Alex from WMD a few months back, and we both kind of through this long-winded conversation stumbled our way into this I guess what do I say, there's these things like Disting and your Ornament and Crimes and all these crazy things, they're not made for everybody. They're not made for you, the individual, to use it to its full potential. They're made for it to have a wide swath of uses, so many different people can fit it into their specific workflows. And I think thinking about that has like made me lose a little anxiety about working with something like the OC or the Disting. And yeah, but like two of them makes so much sense because I mean, I know there's again, I'm about to do the thing that I said I shouldn't do, but I always felt like I wasn't properly using it because I just basically used the ping pong delay and the reverb, and they were excellent, like digital effects in a very small package. But
I think a lot of people do that, and I'm quite happy with that. If if one mode of the disting is the reverb that you want it to be, then that's fine. And it's not, like you say, it's not expensive for a single function module. Ignoring the fact that it's got like 120 functions or whatever.
That was
if you
be
just
my
use
next
one,
question.
it's still not expensive.
Right. Yeah.
So
what are we up to?
And with the EX as well, I mean, the EX has got all the Disting Mark IV stuff in it, but the Disting EX kind of single mode algorithms, they're called, the things that use the whole machine, there's only 20 of those at the moment. So that's not quite such an overwhelming number, and they're all it's like a much more powerful single thing, probably a lot more configurable, whereas the Disting Mark IV has just got literally over 100 things. So yeah, in a way, it's easier to get your head around the EX if you ignore the Mark IV stuff. Yeah, I would say, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I was watching this morning before we started chatting. I was watching the granulator video.
Oh yeah.
And that seems like a lot of fun. But we're a quarter of the way through this, and I don't want to talk about disting the whole time because you've done a lot of other stuff. So there are three things I definitely want to get to before the end of the hour, and one of those is why analog modules. Like, I want to talk about that whole, not why, but like just the decision to do it and everything. I want to talk about the label, and then I also want to talk about the new stuff. So which
order would you like
to talk? Yeah, is there one that you want to talk about first?
Well, why don't we? If we talk about analog stuff, that will neatly take us on to new stuff.
Okay, cool.
Because that kind of tells you what the new stuff is. So, I did some analog things. I think it's because I think I've said this before to somebody, so I'll be consistent. It's I'd kind of done the Disting EX and I'd done the ES9, which are like the most digital things you could possibly imagine doing, right? And I had the choice. I've had some other project which hasn't actually yet seen the light of day, which I might have launched into, which would have been like another incredibly digital thing. Or I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice just to make a filter that goes squelch, just for a rest from this incredible detailed digital stuff. So that was kind of it, really. I just kind of gave myself some time to play with some discrete electronics and just to see if I could come up with anything that I liked, and also come up with something that maybe hadn't been done, because I didn't want to just sit down and say, right, let's make the Expert Sleepers analog system. We'll have a VCO, a VCA, VCF, and we'll use this design for that. I didn't want to go and pick off, get one of the Curtis clone synth on a chip things and just plug it into a PCB, because honestly, it's been done. So why would I do that? So I just tried to think of something a little bit different. And I think what I came up with the first three being the filter, the VCO, and the phaser, are all genuinely slightly different in their approach than anything else that exists on the market. So it was cool. I'm really pleased with them, and I'm using them myself when I play, and it's just nice to do something that is done. It's not. I don't have to update the firmware for the next 10 years.
Right. Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's in a much more crowded market, I guess. So I'm not doing the same numbers of those as I am doing of disting. So, but yeah, it's been a fun thing.
It's got to feel good to have something like the disting that gives you breathing room to do something like these analog, and not. I mean, maybe I don't know. I could be just putting this on you, but I'm imagining you didn't feel like immense pressure about them breaking the internet as far as like new analog modules go, because you're right. It's just there's a lot of stuff out there.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't under any illusions that everybody was suddenly going to buy no other VCO than my VCO. In fact, I really don't think that would be a wise choice, because it's not. it's not a bread and butter VCO. You know, there are some things that you expect some VCOs to do that mine simply doesn't do, but it does other things that other VCOs doesn't. Don't. So I've lost my grammar during that sentence.
Yeah,
It's all
weird
gone
when
off
you're talking
into
about singular, plural, back and forth,
plurals.
and then you end, and it's like, is it an is or an are? Yeah.
I'll listen back to this and cringe. But anyway, yeah, and the filter, you know, it's a resonant 2-pole filter is kind of unusual. The phaser, I'm very pleased. I mean, I've sold complete sets of modules just because somebody liked the sound of the phaser.
Mm-hmm.
So I take that to be a good sign.
I love a good phaser. I really want to try it out. I was watching videos about that this morning too. I'm like, oof.
Yeah, it's kind of swirly.
Yeah.
And then yeah, the other ones, the kind of VCA thing with the what's the USP of the VCA? The zero crossing detection.
Oh, okay.
To get rid of clicks on really, really fast envelopes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of cool. And doing that completely analog without using any kind of digital sampling or stuff is, I think, again, I don't think there's anything else that does that. And then I'm just looking at my system there to remind myself what I did. Then, yeah, the Pandora, that went a little bit left field. That's a real kind of oddball filter distortion kind of module. But it has its own charm. And then the thing, yes. So I'm looking. I should have had something here to actually hold up to the camera. Maybe I should do that. Can I do it without? No, I'm going to lose my headphones.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
hang on.
That sounds good.
I'm connected through too many wires here. Just give me 1 second.
Please pardon the interruption, but I want to take a moment to thank Patchworks, our lovely synth shop here in the Northwest. If you haven't been to the showroom and you're going to visit the Seattle area, that's got to be on your destination list. It's one of the coolest, most wonderfully laid out, comfortable, inviting environments that I've been in a very long time, and it's full of awesome people. Everybody who works there is so nice and so helpful. But if you can't make it into the shop, don't you worry about a thing. You can head over to patchworks.com, patchwerks.com, sign up for their newsletter, follow them on Instagram. They're always having great sales and events, and they carry just about anything that you would need, including studio equipment, desktop synths, and then groove boxes, and then all sorts of modular gear. So once again, that is patchwerks.com, patchwerks.com. I'd like to say thank you to After Later Audio for their continued support of Podular Modcast. Don't forget about the new Mutable Instruments Classics line that is made up of a bunch of really great one-to-one versions of the now retired Mutable Instruments modules. They also have a bunch of really awesome original designs, including something that hopefully will be released this year that I have a hand in, and it's really cool, and I cannot wait to share it with y'all. But until then, head over to afterlateraudio.com to check out all of the excellent modules they have available. Also, a lot of really great patch cables, different types, stackables, all sorts of cool colors and lengths, and some really nice screws that you can use your hands with for your Eurorack system. I love them. Yeah. So once again, afterlateraudio.com, link in the show description. Let's get back into the show.
Okay. So I don't know what the video quality is going to do for this, but this is my current gigging rig, which is all expert sleepers, apart from the case, obviously. This case is a nano machines. Is that what they call themselves? Nano. Again, it's probably some slightly Spanish sounding word that I can't say. The cakes or something 104. So this is how I play at the moment. I've got my FH2 driving everything from a few MIDI controllers, and then I've got my VCOs and VCF and VCA and phaser and stuff. And then the missing part of the puzzle is this thing, which is the new one, which is Amelia, which is an envelope generator.
Okay.
It is a and then of course I've just complete this at the end. Of course, I've got some distings.
It's the 1U stuff. Did you make your own 1U versions of your stuff?
No, this built into the case.
Oh, nice, very cool. Okay.
Yeah, so this is the joy of this case is it's got it's nice and it looks nice. It's got some chunky 1/4-inch inputs and outputs.
Oh, very cool.
And the inputs come through here, and then it's got some mults, and it's got a adder thing, and it's got some LFOs, and it's got a sample and hold.
Oh, cool.
And it's got a little mixer, headphones. So
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice little thing. That's what I was saying. Yeah, so the distings on the end are doing things like reverb and granulation, and actually one of them is usually the looper. So
okay,
I can kind of build up a thing and then loop it on this disting and then do something else and make another loop and then kind of layer up
nice.
things. Rather than just having one synth voice burbling away, I can have this big 4-layer composition going on. So the Amelia it's an envelope. So I call it an ADBR, attack, decay, break, release. So there's no sustain stage on it at all.
Okay.
So that's my headphones gone out of my head. Oh, if I was any more slick, it would be painful, wouldn't it? Hang on. No, wrong headphone. Telepresence hasn't quite arrived yet. Right. So it goes. So it triggers, and you get the attack, and then it kind of decays down to a break level. So it's down to a voltage, and then continues to decay, but at a different rate, which is the sustain. No, which is the release. Sorry. So you can get a kind of sharp up, sharp down, and then a longer release, or you can get a kind of sharp up and then a slow decay and then a sudden drop. It's kind of designed for when things like this, when you've got a sequencer triggering it and stuff, rather than having to worry about how long your gates are, or if you've just got a trigger pulse, it'll always do the same envelope shape. And that's all under voltage control. So it turns out that a kind of a sharp attack, sharp decay, and then a slow decay, you can get kind of a Vactrol sounding kind of shape going on.
Oh, cool. So wait, is the break its own stage? Like,
yeah, there's 3 stages. So there's kind of there's 2 release stages, and it switches when it gets down to a certain voltage.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
And then it's also got shape control for the attack and decay stages, so you can have exponential, linear, or logarithmic shapes.
Will the waveform change shape during the cycle, like if you're CVing it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
And it will. You can put it into kind of free running mode, so it turns into a kind of complex LFO kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, so what is that? And then, there is a mode where it will actually use the incoming gate length, but then it uses that to switch between the decay and the release. So you've got a few options, but
cool.
It's again, I don't think it works exactly like any other envelope works.
Mm-hmm.
It was designed particularly for if you want to have it being driven by a kind of sequencer environment, but sometimes I play it from a keyboard.
I'm thinking
anyway, and it's kind of fun.
A guitar, like trigger, like with get an envelope follower that generates a gate, and like trigger it with a guitar, and I've been doing a lot of guitar through modular lately.
I'm trying to think what else to say about it. There's a switch for time range, so like it'll go from the shortest segment is a millisecond.
Okay.
And then it'll go. So within one range, you can turn the knob to go from a millisecond to about a second, and then you can slow it down, and then you can slow it down again with the switch. So the slowest ones are like, you're talking minutes probably for a full cycle.
Okay, so yeah, you could do a really, really nice, like in that self-cycling mode, like some really nice slow
Yeah,
morphing LFOs. Is
and
there
it's
any?
analog, so
Oh,
it's
nice.
there's no stepping or staircasing or any of that stuff. So
One
yeah,
output, or do you have multiple outputs, or?
there's one output. So yeah, you're just I mean, there's one here with nothing plugged in. So you've got gate. This is where you would edit in a photograph of the
Right,
module.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
send me one, I will.
yeah, there's a so gate in or trigger in and an output, and then attack, decay, break, release, CV inputs,
Uh-huh. Okay,
and then the shape knobs. Am I actually on the screen? Shape knobs, and then the switches for the mode and the time ranges.
very
And
cool.
that is coming out. Well, by the time this podcast is out, it will be out and about. So
Very
let's put that
cool.
down.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to release like the week of your announcement, or whichever is closer, the announcement or like the sale date, or whichever you prefer. But we can figure that out
Yeah.
off the
Well.
air.
Yeah. Sure.
Um,
So that's what's happening with that, and I've got two more modules in that series actually in the manufacturing pipeline already, so they'll be out probably. I guess Superboost would make sense
okay.
for those. So yeah, that's what's happening with hardware at the moment. It's kind of
Very
fun.
cool. So you're definitely like you dipped your toe into the analog thing to see if you wanted to swim, and it sounds like you're enjoying the pool.
I am. Well, also because of the naming convention I've chosen for them, I've kind of committed myself to doing at least 10 modules.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
Beatrix, are these like
Ivo,
goddesses or
Lorelei.
something?
Yeah, they're the track names from my favorite album.
Oh, okay. What's the album?
Yeah, Treasure by Cocteau Twins.
Oh, wow. I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah. So I need to get up to what's the last one? Dynamo, and then I can stop.
Okay. All right.
So we'll see.
Well,
I'm not
if you
sure when
need some
that'll happen, but
ideas, I'm always thinking of weird stuff that I want to make. But
okay,
um, uh,
I'm all ears.
well, something that else, like, because you play music, you do software, and now you do
Yeah.
hardware. I'm curious, like, of course you're using the same brain to do all of that, but do you feel like you're in different headspaces or zones when you're doing one or the other, or and if so, is there like a Venn diagram centerpiece where they all kind of mesh?
Oh crikey! It's definitely a different headspace, and that's the problem. As I think I said earlier, just and that is a danger of using my own stuff to make music, is because I can very easily slip into kind of product development or problem solving mode
Right,
when
while
I'm
you're
just actually trying to,
uh-huh.
if it was somebody else's module, I would just deal with whatever was happening. Whereas if it's
Hmm.
mine, I was thinking, oh, well, what if I just change that? And then I'm off to the workbench rather than actually making some music. So yeah, that can be a problem. But equally, like I've said, it drives the products in a good direction. To the fact that I actually use them, so I don't mind too much. But yeah, sometimes it can be quite hard. I found the last year or so I haven't been able to do a lot of music at all, but I'm blame part of that on Elden Ring, I have to say.
Oh my gosh, I
Um,
started it and then I stopped because it was summertime, and then my wife's
right.
been playing Skyrim constantly, so
All
she's
right.
kind of been on the video games. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
like I couldn't beat the first boss, of course, so I just went around and started just messing around and trying to like level up and stuff. But it's
Yeah.
a pretty tough game.
It is, but I've finished it, 7 times now? So
What?
I kind of,
Holy shit!
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But then I've just had to totally draw a line under it because it was, I can't let myself start it again.
Yeah.
I've just got going with a new album project, and I don't want to have to put it on hold for another 60 hours while I finish Elden Ring again. So yeah, but that's what's happening in my life. After a reasonably productive couple of years previous to that, with getting these LPs out and stuff that I did, I'm very pleased with.
Yeah.
I should have an LP to hold up to the camera at this
Right.
point.
Yeah.
But of
Well, I
course, I
want to talk about the label. I
don't
think
have one. Yeah.
that's. I don't think I was aware of that until, just doing some research for this chat.
Yeah. That's definitely comes under the category of seemed like a good idea at the time. It's just, yeah, I mean, partly it's an excuse to release my own music and music
Yeah.
of people I know, but the stated reason for it is to give an outlet for music that uses expert sleepers stuff, to the mutual benefit of musician and expert sleepers. I guess it's like we can both shout about each other and say how great we are, and also to to do that job of the label, which historically is to kind of take that financial risk away from the musician. A company is in a good place to take a financial punt, whereas maybe an artist by themselves wouldn't want to press up some vinyl because it's stupidly expensive.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been, I'm pleased with some of everything that's been out on the label so far. I mean, it's not particularly prolific, but it's curated and it has a mission statement. So yeah, I'm definitely carrying on with that.
I gotta say the four drones for saxophone and modular synthesizer, the art and the cover art with the orange vinyl, like it looks real nice and classy. And I don't think I knew you played saxophone. Maybe I did.
That's a relatively recent thing. I mean, yeah, when I spoke to you last, I think I was probably already on my woodwind journey, but maybe not saxophone at the time. Bass clarinet was my thing for a long time.
Okay.
And then kind of dabbled in sax, and currently I'm going down the brass route. So
cool.
I currently play trumpet and baritone horn.
Oh, nice.
Since last November, I think I started taking lessons. Or was it October? Did my first gig in January. So yeah, absolutely throwing myself into this whole different world of instruments.
That's awesome. Can I? Go ahead.
No, go on. What are you saying?
I was just gonna ask if you could kind of I'm sure it's ever evolving, but walk us through, maybe for the Four Drones album, walk us through the process of how did you use that with were you tracking and then sampling, or were you playing into a modular system, or how did that go?
But that one was very different. So the two albums before that were very much studio works. In that there was lots of tracking, lots of editing, lots of layering and arranging and stuff, which was, really, really happy with those. And then with Four Drones, it was just when lockdown was stopping, and I thought, well, maybe I can actually do a gig. Why don't I prepare something that I might play? And in the event, I never have played any of these pieces live, but it was the thought was, let's actually compose something, but also have it be something that could be done live. So the album basically is live takes, and they're on YouTube, right? They're single. You can prove they're single takes because you can actually watch me doing it.
Oh, cool.
So nice. If you want to know the process for that album in particular, then go watch the video because you can see exactly what I'm doing to build it up. So it's the saxophone isn't going through the modular particularly. It's kind of alongside it in that case. So there's drones and loops and stuff from the modular. So it's like the Disting Dream Machine algorithm is all over that because that's the drone machine basically. And then some other rhythmic-y stuff or not. Disting EX looper for making up layers of that, and then sax going into a pedal board with some effects and a looper again. So lots of looping because how else would one person make that much sound? But
I've been considering getting another looping pedal. just because like I'm
Yeah.
familiar with how they work, or I really want to build or have somebody build me a stomp box that's just an array of like trigger outs where I can just press a button with my foot and trigger and just trigger stuff in my modular setup.
Okay. What do I have that does that? I've got the old Moog pedal has actually got CV outputs, which is kind of weird.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
What's it
it's only got
called?
4. The Moog MP201. It's kind of this weird hybrid. I don't even know if they make it anymore, but it's kind of a MIDI controller foot switch, which
Weird.
has
Okay.
also got some CV outputs on it.
Huh. Let's see. I found one
It's
on Reverb. What is it going for? Oh, 839. I feel like I could probably build one.
I don't think it was that much originally. I think you're paying for the kind of not available anymore and the Moog name there, but there are other ways to it. So for the album for 4 Drones, I was using a Chase Biss blooper pedal.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Which I'll admit I've sold since, and I'm now using. I got a Line 6 HX Effects, which is the Helix series thing, and that has basically replaced the whole pedal board.
Okay.
That I'm really happy with that.
Nice.
So yeah, goodbye Line 6 gear. It's great. I'd pick it up off the floor and hold it up, but I'm not sure that would prove anything. So that's kind of fun. Yeah, looping, lots of reverb, lots of looping and stuff on that album.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I think, what else did I do? I think I ended up getting a tablet app on my phone and running that through the modular at one point as well.
What is that?
Just tabla, the Indian percussion instrument?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about specific software or something.
No. So yeah, you can get apps. They're kind of designed for people to practice along to. So I kind of had one of those running through one of the tracks through a lot of reverb and looping, like you do.
Very cool.
So that was kind of fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just wonder where you have the time, especially considering you've beat Elden Ring 7 times. Like, do you sleep?
I do. Very, very well most nights.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't struggle for time. Like I say, it's I really enjoy developing code, and I find it comes naturally. So
yeah,
just typey.
Well, you've been a musician a long time. You've been running this company for a long time, and you're like obviously a very smart person. So I imagine you've got a pretty good routine and kind of structure to your day to day. Which
I mean it helps that we have to get up and let the kids out to school in the morning. So
right.
So I'm kind of at my desk by 8 most mornings and work through. Depends. Yeah. So I do a good solid working week, I would say.
Yeah. Nice. I'm curious too because if your first module came out 13 years ago, you're one of the still standing early Eurorack companies. Like I'm trying to figure out how to ask this without it being too broad, but has Eurorack, since you started to now, like, has it gone in any way that you maybe anticipated or wanted, and where do you see it going? Just kind of judging by where we've come.
I'm definitely pleasantly surprised that it's still as much of a thing as it is, to be honest. I mean, everybody was saying for the longest time, oh, this is going to be a flash in the pan. So I'm pleased that it's not. It's certainly, what is it certainly? I don't know, there's certainly anything, actually. I was about to say something glib there, and I'm not sure I will. I don't know. It's the thing, it's happened over such a long time that whatever's happened has happened fairly organically. I don't feel that there have been any big revolutions in Eurorack over the years. there's an awful lot of digital stuff going on now, which is fine. I mean, I'm doing some of it, but I'm also doing some analog stuff, and I think it's important that analog stuff is. I mean, it's gone in some weird directions, like the preponderance of MIDI usage within Eurorack I find very surprising. But again, I'm very much part of that, and it's very useful. I've got in my case there, I've got the FX2 is specifically a MIDI to CV converter, but I've got using like a MIDI fader box to control the disting, granulator, and stuff like that, which is super handy. And that. I mean, for someone who's as old as me, that is also surprising to me when people clearly don't know how MIDI works in 2023, because for me that's like, well, how old is that now? That's 40 years old, that technology. I've grown up with it. So for someone to have been, maybe people have been doing music production for 10 years and then suddenly they want to know how MIDI works is really weird to me, because surely the first thing you learn when you learn music production is MIDI, right? But obviously that's not the case anymore. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just turning into a kind of reminiscing old granddad at this point. Yeah, everything's a bit topsy-turvy if you go that far back.
I'm curious, like, are there any particular developers or modules that have come out, recently, or as recently as you want to call recently, that have been something that has like kind of impressed you, or is there somebody out there doing something that you think is real special right now? I mean, obviously there's a lot of people doing very cool stuff.
There's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. I find it hard to keep track of, especially since I've basically haven't left the house for the last 5 years. So I don't know. I don't know who to call out in this, really. I mean, if I could turn my camera to my modular, which I'm actually currently making a track with, I've got 6U of Analog Systems gear there, right? I mean, they're not in business anymore. I've got another 6U of Dirtfer. So yeah, I'm very, very old school. I like to keep on track of stuff, but when I actually come to start plugging stuff together, it's the old analog stuff that I turn to, because ultimately that's why I got into Eurorack, because I wanted to patch up a load of oscillators and filters and things. I've ended up with a lot of Chaos modules, actually. I like the way they look. I like the way they sound,
and they feel just solid too. Like the construction and the paper, like the packaging and stuff is all really like. It's it's definitely like a boutique feel to it, or like a designer feel to it. That's really nice.
Yeah. So if there was anything that's clear from this rack that you can't see, it's that I like their stuff. But otherwise, yeah, I've got so many modules really that I never use, that trying to get excited about anything new that's just come out that isn't mine, especially when I've got, I'm not obviously excited about my stuff because I've made it. And I've made what I want to use, so it's kind of, I'm limiting my excitement levels for other stuff in a way. So I don't have any kind of massive recommendations for you other than Expert Sleepers and Analog Systems. I just love the Analog System stuff. It's just, there's the first modules I ever bought, and it's the ones I use most still.
I get that mixed up with Analog Solutions.
Different, though similar vintage. So Analog Systems are the ones that kind of got reinvented and being sold by Schneider's now, are they? I think.
Oh, Schneider's making their own modules?
I think. Well, they've done license them somehow. I assume somebody's making them, because did the guy die? He certainly retired. I can't remember. Sorry.
I'm just like trying to look for one.
But they're the most old school things you can imagine to somebody coming to modular now, because they're all really big by which I mean they're actually a sensible size, which are your modular, you know,
Totally,
you can actually get your hand in there. So, I mean, what you saw, I mean, all my analog module designs are, they look very much like the old Dirtford designs in terms of how they're laid out, purely because, as is the case with all my modules, I have, so, you know, row of sockets, row of knobs. The reason being that my PCBs are like that. Whereas everybody else in Eurorack these days, their PCBs are like that, which means you can put a pot wherever you like. So because, you know, for exactly the same reason, the analog systems modules and the old Dirtford modules, everything's in rows because that's how the PCBs are. And the reason I do that, apart from habit, is the fact that I've got these illuminated jack sockets, which work that way. So I'm kind of stuck with that as a layout. But I kind of like it. It looks old school. It looks consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody likes the sockets because I think just because, I mean, I guess when everybody was using Dirtford, my sockets were pretty similar to what everybody was using, but now mine are different because everybody else is using the vertical ones. So they've got a slightly different feel. So, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for joining me again. My only regret is that we didn't do it sooner, but there's no time like the present. This was awesome.
Absolutely.
Before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to scream from the modular mountaintops?
What did we talk about? Oh, new module, new dist. So looping back round to that email with Emily. The next disting firmware will indeed have plats in it.
Oh, cool.
Very cool. By the time this is out, they'll be quad plats.
Quad plats.
Plats polysynth, if you so wish. Yeah, It's kind of it's a big sound.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, other than that, no, just keep on keeping on. And I guess if we're shouting out anything, if you use a lot of Expert Sleepers gear and are making some music and want some music out on my label, get in touch.
Oh, awesome! Because I have people asking me a lot how to approach labels and stuff. So that's great news. I'm definitely gonna.
So if there's some coherent Expert Sleepers message, other than I plugged disting in once and didn't like it, then there has to be a positive story I can tell. But I'm open to all comers. Very cool. Yeah. Do you have a few more minutes for a Patreon bonus section? Just like a bonus section, So I've been enjoying asking people this question lately. And it kind of came up while I was meeting some, friends of friends at like a dinner party. And rather than asking them what they do for a living, because I really didn't like that question when I didn't do what I loved for a living. I like to just ask, obviously music and stuff, but aside from music and designing, is there anything that you're particularly excited about lately, or something that has moved you lately? A piece of music, a movie, a book? Pardon me. Other than Elden Ring. Other than Elden, yeah, we got that one.
All right, that is our show. Thank you so much to Oz for coming back to Podular Modcast. Thank you for coming back, or if this is your first time, welcome. Thank you to Patchworks for their continued support of Podular Modcast. Please visit them online at patchwerks.com. Also, afterlateraudio.com. Great place to go and check out some really awesome modules. Thank you to Novation for their support of Podular Modcast. Let's trade some Summit patches. Do you have some Summit patches built? Let's hit me in the DMs. Let's see what we can do. That would be pretty fun. Thank you to everybody who has signed up for Patreon recently. Don't forget, we're going to be doing that fun passing on of a lot of my gear later on in this month. Trying to get to 200 subscribers this year. It's been my goal for the last few years, and yeah, let's put it on our vision boards. Can you put it on your vision board for me? Thank you. All right, this week's secret word is starseeds. One word, starseeds. I got it from a graphic novel sitting on my shelf right over there, and it's a cool sounding word. Until next week.